Welcome to 13 Minutes Why Every Man Needs a Why. My good friend, now my brother, Kyle Emanuel Brown. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here, brother.
I'm excited to have you. So much to talk about, but let's start with the reality that every 13 minutes in America, a man kills himself. And as my teacher and mentor, Viktor Frankl, said, he who has a why to live can bear with almost any how. The men who take their lives, like my father and too many others, have forgotten, lost, maybe never had their why. And so I bring on men onto my show who are the embodiment of a why, living their why, sharing it with the world. That's why you're here. So here we go. Let's talk about Kyle's why. How about let's start with why not? Because as people who watch this know, Frankl would say to his clients, why haven't you killed yourself? And although I don't know if that's been part of your story, I do know that you came certainly close to having your life killed, not by choice, but
right.
to you. Tell us about that. Let's start there.
So I was this guy at that moment in my life who was sold on the hustle culture. And for me, hustle was, I was fully in my masculine. Everything playful and spiritual about me had gone away because I just was all about, I'm building this fitness empire to prove to myself and prove to all those who doubted me. And coming from a family where, my siblings have all done really well for themselves. And it's not because we're coming from big family endowments at all. I was cut off at 17 19, when my dad basically said, hey, I can't work anymore after he broke his neck. And so I was like, I'm going to build this fitness empire to help a lot of people and make a lot of money and then just be able to do everything I want. And so I kept pushing, and I thought the way there was this 3 feet from gold mindset, right? Just keep digging. And I realized I was really more like almost 6 feet underground. And aesthetically on the outside, I was the epitome of health. I was in the natural health space for a long time. I was about 5% lean body fat for about 20 years. And all the questions people would ask me would be health, wellness, natural health, all that stuff. But I had pushed myself to the brink. So I went to the Human Longevity Institute where they mapped the human genome. And I was able to get my whole genome mapped in this whole $25,000 process where they check everything out. And they're like, you're at the level of like a world-class athlete. And this is, back in 2018, Thanksgiving time around there. And then 6-8 weeks later, I'm in the ICU. They're calling code sepsis, and I'm darn near dying. My organs were shutting down. I had double pneumonia, and I didn't know why. It didn't really make sense. I hadn't even had a common cold in 5 years, but I was knocking on heaven's door, so to speak, which really gave me this big opportunity to slow down, pause, and reevaluate myself.
How close did you come to death? You were pretty close.
It's interesting you say that. So from a physical, clinical standpoint, pretty close. They were trying every antibiotic in the world. They didn't understand what was going on. They're having conversations. They're on the phone. The head of the ER there was on the phone with my buddy who had told me to go to get a chest x-ray, who is an ER doc out in Vegas. And they're like, try this med. They didn't know what to do. And so I'm in the ICU on a breathing machine, and they can't figure out why I'm so sick. So once they finally got me stabilized, they said, we don't know what's going on. He might have AIDS. And they put me in a little side room all by myself until they could figure things out. And I was extremely close. And in those moments, I was really defiant because I'm like, what am I doing in here? And why am I not getting enough help? But they just kind of quarantined me because they couldn't even figure it out.
What do you attribute it to? I mean, maybe we don't know the physicals or any other reasons. What's your learning or takeaway from it all?
If I try to figure it out with my left brain, I'm left at the same place that the pulmonologist was, which is I don't get it. It just left me walking in a maze in circles, and she didn't get it and they didn't understand it. They also didn't understand when they're like, you need to be here for a month. And I said, no, I'm going home today. And I was able to show them and demonstrate that I can go home today using, I was walking around going every day in every way, I'm getting healthier and healthier. I looked like a lunatic about 3 days in, and I went home and recovered at home. So they couldn't believe that either. Mm. But if I look at it through a metaphysical lens, it was very clear. I was given an opportunity to do life over and to live my why and actually truly embody my why. And it was like, oh, by the way, this building this empire over here wasn't your why. That's not why you came here. And I was given an awareness of what that why was.
In this process?
In this process, I was given a taste, but I also had all clarity stripped away from me in the process. So it took about 2 years until I got to the bam, aha, now I get it.
So 2 years from that place?
Yeah. So that happened on January 11th, 2019. And so at the time then, all masculine energy, so to speak, shut off, meaning I had no clarity, no drive. I couldn't get to the gym and work out. Like my workouts were a joke. My lungs, I'd been a college water polo player, a former bodybuilder. I had like no capacity. And then with my business and businesses at the time, no drive and no clarity. So I would have meetings with people and they're like, hey, we need this by Monday. And we get to Monday and they're like, where are you at with it? I'm like, nothing. I haven't done anything. But spiritually, I came back online. And the reason I say back online is because as a little kid, I was really tuned in. I had an aunt who's a Hawaiian shaman, numerology, Reiki master, astrology, Jin Jitsu practitioner, and another one who was a channel. So I was really into these things and really curious about them when I was really little. And then I'd shut it all off. So I came back online. And it didn't happen until a bunch of spiritual leaders were brought on this trip to Egypt for 11/11/21. And we'll just say in the king's chamber, I had a very interesting moment that really brought my masculine energy back.
So you went on this trip to Egypt?
Yep.
You were inside the pyramid? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So inside the Great Pyramid in Giza at 1:11 in the morning, we had this group of all these spiritual leaders from around the world, including the head educator at Damanhur, the spiritual community in Italy. And we all went in, and at 1:11 in the morning, we had a private group that went into the king's chamber with a very clear intention. And the intention was all around raising the frequency and the consciousness of humanity to really help up-level humanity, knowing that we're in the midst of this crisis, we're still in the midst of COVID, and really looking at it from a we consciousness energy. And there is this thing in there that if you talk to an Egyptologist, they'll say, oh, this is where the pharaohs were buried. I'm like, no, that's over at Valley of the Kings. Like, what is this sarcophagus for? But from a metaphysical standpoint, they say that sarcophagus was where the high priest would come in, lay down, astral project, and connect with all that is. And so for me, they have a camera in there, and we created a little line so nobody could see. And if you work for them right now, sorry we did this, but changed my life. So, hey. And we each got to lay in there for max 3 minutes. And I'd gotten all these signs that I was going to die there.
This was after
Yeah. So this is 2 years later, after 2.5 years later. And I was like, why am I getting signs I'm going to die in Egypt? This is crazy. And so I said, all right, well, I'm going to have a spiritual death. I'm going to kill off this version of me that's standing in my own way. And so I laid down, I crossed my arms, and then popped out of my physical awareness and had this astral projection of sorts. Went back in, shook it off, went to go visit my brother in Israel, came back, I got sick again for about 2 weeks. First time I'd been sick since that big sickness. Luckily, this one wasn't so bad. More like a COVID kind of thing, but it wasn't COVID. And after that, it was like 2 rubber bands snapped into place. And the 2 rubber bands were just a total alignment and clarity with that divine masculine and divine feminine energy within me, where I found this super clear rapid harmony is not just my business, it's my embodiment.
Is that when you came up with the idea of rapid harmony?
I'd come up with it in 2019 as a concept, but I didn't have a lot of clarity around it, what it was, where it was going. And I was operating it very much from that what we'll call both divine and wounded feminine energy, meaning it didn't have structure, didn't have systems, it didn't have deadlines. It was like, show up to the meetings if you want, don't show up if you don't want, which was really beautiful in 70s, or we could say 60s Woodstock kind of vibe. But transformation tends to not happen then. It's a little bit more just moving in circles. But from that point, that's when the harmony of the two really came into the full embodiment.
So come back to your why. So it was born out of that experience.
Yeah.
If you were to articulate it, what does it look like?
I would say my why I feel really clear on. And it is a bit of this party planner of salvation, meaning I'm here to serve as this bridge between that bringing down of heaven to earth. And if we take away those words that can be triggering, I'm here to embody, to the best of my ability, this guy who is living in a state of reverence, but is also very human, where I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and to show others, leading by example, what it's like to live from a place of alignment and not from a place of perfection. I think those two things are very different, more from a place of alignment with my best and highest version of myself.
And so what form does that take? I know you work one-on-one with folks.
Yeah, so I work one-on-one with folks through a program that I call Empowered Leader. And I also have some new programs coming out now. I've ran masterminds and still do, but I have a new program coming out called Quantum Catapult, which is like a 30-day aligned momentum program. And then I have a new mastermind coming called Quantum Leadership Mastermind.
And of course, you have a book, Total Self-Trust.
Yes.
Which you talk a lot about these things in there. I read most of it. So you're sharing that book with the world as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting as I've gone through this process with Total Self-Trust. I went to journalism school. I'm a writer by trade. I just love to write like you. And what hit me with this particular book was it was a little over a 3-year journey to get it out. And the reason was just because I was like, okay, I have to embody total self-trust before I put this out to the world, or else it's not aligned. So how can I teach alignment if I don't feel fully aligned? So I said, where do I not feel total self-trust? And where's there false evidence appearing real? And I was like, wow, well, I've got a lot of programming still, from a very worried mom about living from a place of fear. And where are these fears? And one was this fear of being alone, and kind of like a fear of nature, not just outplaying the nature, but like true aloneness in nature. And so I said, okay, great. I'm going to pause everything until I've been going through a few years of shamanic training until after my vision quest. And in a vision quest, if you're not familiar with that is, listening at home, it's basically you and nature with no distraction in a very small amount of space. For me, it was a little circle. And I was out there for 4 days with no distractions of food, no distractions of my phone or entertainment. And it's to get to this point of slowing down to realize oneness mindset experientially. And my fear of nature went away because I realized I am every little bit of nature I'm looking at, not just in the way that I'd studied it, but in the way that I was embodying it and feeling it and experiencing being everything that I was looking at.
And so no plant medicine involved with the vision quest?
Not on the vision quest. But that was the second thing that I did was I said, okay, well, what's the other fear that is like big and debilitating? And I was like, well, I've had some near-death experiences, but I'm still afraid of death. So let's go die. So I said, okay, well, how can I do that? Well, 5-MeO-DMT, bufo. So December of 24, I got to experience dying, which is a big part of what happens with a good old dose of bufo is you return back your consciousness to the source of all that is. And it was glorious. Like, cool, if this is dying fantastic. I have no interest in doing it now. I really want to have this human experience. I love this human experience. I'm grateful for this human experience. And I'm not afraid of what's next when I'm done with this experience, which in turn is now making me soak up this experience and enjoy this video game I'm playing.
Have you ever met anybody who's had a negative experience with Bufo, as far as coming back more afraid? I've never, I mean, as you said that, I'm like, I've never met anybody who's more afraid of death because of it, only
No.
less afraid.
No. And I don't know if I've ever met anyone who's had a near-death experience that is more afraid of death in any capacity of having a near-death experience. I kind of look at it like we tend to not appreciate things, that we have when we get used to them, right? That's why we move out of this honeymoon state. And I can understand that. But it's kind of like you've got this girlfriend that you're trying to turn into your girlfriend, and then you eventually turn her into your girlfriend, then you turn her into your wife, and then she's there every day, and then we stop appreciating, and then all of a sudden you see another guy sort of hitting on her, and it's like, wait a minute. Now I'm appreciating this, and hey, that's mine, and no, it's not yours. She's choosing to spend time with you, and whatever the rules and the dynamics are. And for me, I think it's kind of like that, but on a way grander scale, which is like life, like this is mine. Like thinking the 2 steps ahead is like, okay, if I ended this or this was taken from me, then what? And not only then what for me, but then what for we? What happens to the collective? What happens to those I'm leaving behind?
I've heard you talk a lot about we. We's very important to you. I know for anybody listening, maybe some of you are aware of a community that Kyle started called Rooted. Is that the full name of it? Or is there something else?
Colorado Rooted Entrepreneurs.
Colorado Rooted Entrepreneurs, aka Rooted. Most people call it Rooted around here? Yeah. So Rooted is just this beautiful space, not physically, but of collective of. Originally, I thought it was a business networking group. Then I thought it was a spiritual business networking group. Now I don't know what the fuck it is, but I like it.
Same. That's great. I run it and I don't know what the fuck it is either. So the original idea was sort of this. If I looked at this version of myself that had this near-death experience, and I lived in San Diego, I was working 80 to 110 hours a week, hustling, grinding, push, 7 days a week. I had 2 little kids at home. And I realized I was in this mental loop of when I, then I. Meaning, once I achieve this and I get this business to this certain point, then I can have fun. Once I do this, then I can go hang out with my friends. Once I achieve this, then I can go travel anywhere I want. Then I'll have my freedom. And then when my life was nearly taken away from me, I realized, like, wait a minute. That's not how you get freedom. That's how you get golden handcuffs. And a lot of time you get less freedom. So I want to focus on being this version of myself now. And so great lesson to have happen. And then COVID happens. And COVID was, okay, we're going to pull all connection and community away from you.
Was that hard for you?
Especially going through all of that, it was extremely hard for me.
Also, I think of Enneagram 7s, most of them had a hard time with COVID.
Yeah. It was rough. And I think for me, the biggest thing that happened with COVID was this. I luckily had gotten a hit in some capacity to close down my in-person business, the Thanksgiving before COVID. And I'd been in person, I'd been doing personal training and nutrition for celebs and pro athletes and that whole world, and the ones then who'd moved to San Diego as I was there. But I was like, this old version of me needs to go. And so I told all my clients, hey, I'm done. The day before Thanksgiving's my last day. And they're like, this is crazy. And I'm like, I'm going to be moving my fitness aspect virtual. And they're like, that's nuts. I'm not going to do that. I'm like, you've been with me 10 years. And so not one of them came with in that capacity. One came back later for coaching as he was mentally looping over female stuff. But every one of those in-person people, the relationship ended then.
Wow.
COVID hits and all in-person fitness is gone, which was really fascinating. So something was really clearly telling me, like, it's time, jump, take the leap. And for me, so business wise, it was interesting because I'd made those changes. But personally, I started realizing, wait a minute, I'm finally just starting to put myself out there and get connections, and it's all going away. And I started really leaning into gratitude and appreciation for connection and community that wasn't superficial, right? I like to always say is that I like sports, but I don't want to be a meteorologist and a sportscaster. So I don't want to go to a cocktail party and just bitch about the weather or the economy or something else that's out of my control. Like that doesn't bring me much joy. Like I want to dive in with both feet super deep into connection and learn, what makes that person tick. And I know we both share that, and it's hard to be in that, but I'm like, I want to connect and bring these people together. So
you're a party planner.
Yeah, that's right. I'm party planner of salvation, which means it needs to be fun, right? Why does this video game need to be all just stress and no joy? Forget that.
So you set out to build Rooted.
Yep. So I reached out. We're 2023. I reached out to a buddy who runs a mastermind that I'm in out in Toronto based. And I said, who are the most epic entrepreneurs in the Boulder area? The world's starting to open up. So we got together for a dinner. It was amazing. My cup was so full at the end of the night. And I can usually gauge if a social gathering is really fun and nourishing if it's like past my 8:30, 9 o'clock bedtime and I'm like wired. And that's where I was. And I was like, let's do this again next month. And so I took the lead and planned it the next month, brought a couple of people in, posted about it on social media, and blinked. And all of a sudden I had like 60 people sending me messages on Facebook. Where do I join your mastermind? And so fast forward, we're now a 160 member strong community here.
Did you put a pause on it?
And yeah, I just said, okay, we need to put a pause on this door because I'm getting 5 referrals a week. And I really want to make sure that the people within this community have reverence and respect for it and are active and contributing and having fun and getting out of it what they really want from it. So it was like, okay, let's pause the growth right now and let's go deeper instead of wider for a little bit.
Love that. That's an act of faith. That's important.
Yeah. And it's not my business. It's, a big way I feel like I'm bringing the Avengers together, just these heart-centered, soul-based, spirit-driven entrepreneurs who want to leave the world a better place, who do follow things like Tikkun Olam, and bring them together in different capacities so they can recharge and feel nourished and have those things I neglected for so long. So then when they go back into their communities and their business, they feel recharged.
Yeah, it's been for me, it's been just gratifying to see there are so many others out there who want to do well and do good. Yeah. And it's not either or.
Social media won't show you that. The news sure as heck won't show you that. So if we get to experience that in person, it's a gift.
Yeah, it's really inspired me and my wife Ariella to, we've always known we were going to build a spiritual community where that's the focus, doing spirituality, as practice. And then being a part of Rooted really lit a fire under us to get going. So thank you for that.
I love it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. It's good stuff. So let's talk a little more about the previous Kyle that died versus this one. Because when I read about him in your book and I talk to you and hear about him, sometimes some of us make pretty, I don't know, intense journeys that look very different, but yours is like night and day.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't fully get what this piece is. But a lot of times when I look back at my past and I think about the person that I was and certain things I did in certain situations, I feel like I'm watching a movie of somebody else. And
if you had to put a genre on it, what genre movie is it?
Oh, it's definitely comedy. It's like tragic comedy where you see this like, if I say, where did I end up though? It's like, I feel like now I'm living much closer to that 8-year-old version of myself. The only difference is I'm not shy and I have what I call soul fueled confidence versus the old version that was trying to find confidence through the ego and struggled. So it's like, I'm living what that kid wanted to live and see and explore, and somehow turned it into my life and my business. So I feel congruence to that version of me. But all these other versions of me along the way did have to die, but they also weren't bad. They were all teaching experiences. You know, I think that's also part of the like why is like, well, I'm coming here to Earth School also to learn and have these experiences for the evolution of my consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, I mean, I think it's the same thing you said before. You could teach people how to live in alignment. You had to live in alignment.
Yeah.
So you went and did the vision quest. It just, to me, sounds like an extended vision quest, the process
Yes.
that you had to go through.
Yeah. And I think the moment that we feel like we're done, God, the universe laughs.
Right.
Like, you think you got it all figured out. That's hilarious.
Here's sepsis, you little shit.
Right. Exactly. Like, oh, you're this epitome of health. Congratulations. You pat your ego on the back. You're, in your late 30s and you're built like a world-class athlete, and here's sepsis. Right. You don't have this all figured out. And so that to me is like a spiritual egotism, which is the hardest thing to help anybody through, is when they think they know it all and understand it all and have it all figured out.
Although some people would have doubled down on getting back to where they were, right? That would also be a typical, but you decided to go a radically different direction.
Totally. And pieces of that old version of me are coming back. Like, I like to say that,
5% body fat.
Not yet. I've thought, do I want to get back to similar to that? Like, here's an interesting revelation that came to me on a hike around that is I realized why I haven't gotten back to that. And that was a huge wake up call for me. I'm like, I have all the tools, resources, knowledge. I still love training and taking care of myself. Why have I not gotten back to that? And deep in, I was on a hike. It was kind of like a walking meditation solo. I said, oh, the only reason I haven't gotten back to that is that there is a part of me that's afraid that I will revert back to that person I was, who was that, which was ego driven and didn't have respect. Had love, but I didn't have respect. I didn't have respect for my family. I didn't put others' needs before mine. I was pretty self-absorbed and selfish at the time.
One of my favorite movies ever is American Beauty. You seen it?
Yeah.
Such a good. So he's waking up and he wants to get in shape, and he goes jogging with his neighbors, and he's getting advice, and they say, well, do you want to lose weight? The other guy says, you want to put on muscle? He says, I just want to look good naked.
Yeah.
That's my version of it. Yeah. But I think it's a slippery slope. And I know I always get some hate responses with this. When a guy hits midlife and onwards, if he has too many abs, might want to look at where he's not serving beyond that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I haven't met that many men who can be all in on their body and also be all in on their marriage and their kids and their community and their contribution to the world. And I think it's a very serious issue. And I think you're touching upon it right now, because self-focus is important until, Viktor Frankl says the epitome, the top of the pyramid, Maslow's pyramid, isn't self-actualization. It's not being the most ripped version or the best version of you. It's self-transcendence.
I love that.
And you get into this point midlife where I got a choice to make. And is it me time or is it we time?
That's right.
You're married, you have kids.
Absolutely. And I I remember the moment I had my daughter, actually very clearly, the first phone call I had, which was sitting there. I just had my daughter. They, take her to go get her all set. And I called my parents and I said, I looked everywhere and I saw the umbilical cord and I saw the baby and there's no fucking manual. I had no idea that you guys winged this whole thing.
Hmm.
And around the why, it became extremely clear. At that moment, I started really moving heavier into a we consciousness, but I did it from a wounded energy. So I thought the we consciousness was push harder so that I can provide for them, not just for me, versus embody and have more faith and trust. And I thought I had to do it all alone, and that I had to be strong, and I had to push, and I had to double down on this image and this illusion instead of have a little trust and faith that things can come into me, not just through hustle.
Which by definition isn't we if it's me, right?
That's right.
It's like this Zen koan. Yeah, and I think it's such an important shift. This is why, I coach men, and especially younger men, who talk about not getting married. I think it's the biggest mistake in a man's life, not to get married and have kids. Women, different. Women have a capacity of other in general. I mean, biologically they do, but just look at women, find women more readily than they give of themselves. If you look at like volunteer statistics, women are like 2 or 3 times more likely to volunteer.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this move towards other. Men, it's not our nature.
No.
I really do think we have to defy our nature by finding partnership and committing to it.
And those that say I'm deep on a spiritual path, I don't think they understand how incredibly spiritual relationship is, and how incredibly spiritual parenthood is. It's like, that's all good and great in theory. Now, can you embody it in the midst of the chaos?
That's why I do believe, plant medicine journeys making this, plant medicine's making this, move right now in society, and people are into it. I just think people are focused on the wrong aspect of it. I think it's great. I think it's the integration process that is the most important thing. Ram Dass has this great quote, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's essentially the journey is the beginning, but doing it over the dishes and, when you're changing diapers and et cetera, and traffic, that's the work. And it's not sexy.
I love it. I see it with meditation too, where, yes, there's meditation to connect and remember who and what you are. But from the practical, pragmatic standpoint, when I just look at it through the 3D lens, when I meditate and I do all of my rituals, my patience fuse is so much longer. And kids don't listen to everything you say to them. They probably listen to 5% of what you say to them. They listen somehow to what you say to others, what you say to yourself, how you act. They see what you are doing. And, to make it really granular, you ever sit here and talk to your kid and they're zoned out and they catch nothing, but you're talking to your wife and all of a sudden the kid picks up on everything that you said. You're like, how the hell did she hear that? But she can't hear when I'm talking directly to her. There's a lot to that. So to me, it's like this embodiment is so essential. And with plant medicine, the best way I've heard it explained is it's a peak experience, not a peak experience, meaning you are peeking into this awareness that you can then bring back versus just having this mountain high peak that you then just come back for and then are always chasing. And Dr. Stephen Young, guy that I first got introduced to medicine with, has done a really good job in this, like, how do I then try to embody loving awareness?
I love that. And then you get to total self-trust. I want to come back to that. But before we do, I teach the Enneagram, and the Enneagram, you're not a 7. I'm not an 8. It's who I'm not. It's how I survive. It's I live on a rock on outer space, whirling around a hot ball of fire, waiting to die. This thing is fucking scary. I need to survive. So we put on these persona mask. I'm an 8. I survive. You go into plant medicine, strips away the mask. To me, it's more about who you're not. I come back and I'm going, I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that. I had a taste of who I was. Can't quite name it. Can't quite articulate it. But I know it ain't that. That asshole who's pissed off because somebody cut him off in traffic, right?
Totally.
That's the work.
And one of the things I work on with my clients that I find has really helped me out, I wear this eagle, hawk, whatever on my finger to remember the 30,000 foot view mindset, which is when we are in that stress, we're typically eye looking right in through the microscope, and we lose our peripheral. And the beauty, I think, of the plant medicine is that it forces you to zoom out. And now you're telescope. It's almost like you're getting that effect that an astronaut talks about when they're looking down on Earth, is like it pulls you back from this egoic you into much more of your higher self, your sacred empowered luminous force is the acronym I use for it, which is like you're aware of more of what you actually are. So I love that. You realize you aren't the guy who's pissed off over that. And I think then when you come back from that, as long as you really focus on the intentionality, when you fall out of alignment, it hurts more.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way I can explain it to people who haven't really tapped into that yet is it's very similar to alcohol. So when you're growing up with alcohol, and this generation may be a little bit different, but at least when you and I were growing up, tolerance was like, it's great. Like I can have 7, 8 beers and feel nothing. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'd have a drink and I'd be toast. And people are like, oh, you wuss, you have no tolerance at all. And to me, I look at that as that's a great thing. I'm allergic to alcohol, just like you are. Everyone's allergic to it. It's a poison. So not having a tolerance is a good thing. And the same thing then comes back to your actions that are not congruent with who you are. Now that you're actually taking the time to not be asleep while they're happening and you're more awake, then when you're walking through those processes, you sit there and go like, wait a minute, this isn't me. And so you're less sleepwalking in your day-to-day life.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking that there's a sort of flip side to your book, which is total self-distrust, false self-distrust. Mm-hmm. You start to distrust the old operating system. Right. The shit that got me. And like, I used to tell myself, this is who I am. I'm an 8. I'm a challenger. I'm a disruptor. I'm a bad boy. And you start doing plant medicine, you start working on, but who is the me? Right. Yeah. What is that? And then you come out of it and you live your life and you integrate and you go, I don't trust this old version of me anymore.
No.
Right. I don't need to trust this version of me.
Right. And I think we've lost the ability to be okay with the unknown. And there's this extreme need in chaotic times for certainty. I think that's a good reason why politics became religion. Like the modern day religion is like, you guys tell me what to think. I am this, right? It's like the Crips versus the Bloods, the blue versus the red. Like, you tell me what to think. Hold on. I need to know if I'm supposed to be angry about this or not. Let me go look on social media. Oh, I'm supposed to be pissed off and think this is terrible.
And hate the people in red.
Right. Hate the same person. It's very similar to the elevator versus the freeway. Meaning, if you're in a freeway and you have somebody over there in a car and they cut you off, you're screaming and yelling, going crazy. But you walk into an elevator with that person and they cut you off getting the elevator. You're either saying nothing or you're like, hi, how you doing? Smiling at them all nice. Like, it's this disconnection from source.
As an aside, I was, when I was a rabbi, I pissed off, Enneagram 8, got cut off in traffic, gave somebody the bird. Pulled up next to them, it was like Mrs. Cohen, Oh,
you're like, let's go to the shul.
So, but yeah, it gives you this sort of distance. Well, you said it beautifully, to zoom out, and a little perspective, and like anything, it can be overdone. I see guys rushing to do it again and again, and you just start chasing it, and you turn it into another escape.
That's
right. Versus the way I know you've approached it and you work with people is, can you get back to total self-trust, and who is the self, right, that I'm trusting?
Right.
Do I know him? Do I like him? Do I respect him? Let's blend our messages.
And for me with coaching, a lot of people are like, well, how long am I working with you? What are we doing? What does it look like? And I'm like, I'm not just here to feed somebody information. Like, I look at my long-term coaching relationships. A lot of them have been 10 years plus. And it's because, yes, I'm trying to make you self-reliant, but there are times when people are going through journeys, like if they've taken this leadership role in life where they have to take this and continually embody it in different configurations. and get to that point where they really feel like I'm aware of what my best and highest would do in these situations, and I'm actually doing it. In this situation, which could be going through divorce, in this situation, which could be fighting with your kids, in this situation, which could be business, moving out of the identity of founder to CEO. And I think for a lot of people, that self-trust it's great in theory, but like, do you actually have it? Are you actually embodying it? Especially when your amygdala is kicking in and telling you, that's crazy, that's stupid, why are you doing that?
And you're surrounded with people whose amygdala are also in that same space, which is why we need community,
right?
Of like-minded, like-souled people who are going to hold and support each other in this process, which is, rooted in, I know, a passion of yours.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable to have this type of community. And it doesn't have to be 160 people, and it also doesn't have to be your spouse. Right?
It can't just be your spouse.
It can't just be your spouse. And to me, my spouse relationship it's a very interesting situation. And when I look at it from a high level, one thing that's really interesting about it is my wife is very much just an embodied pragmatist. She's like, be a really good human, really care about others and your actions. Like, she is on the phone with my parents more than me. Every day she's on the phone with my mom and my dad, connecting, being a loving, amazing daughter-in-law. And I think my parents probably like her as a human more than they like me. And I think that's amazing. And if I were to say, well, are you a really spiritual person? She'd be like, nah, not at all. Because she's more focused on the embodiment of it all. And that's beautiful. And so for me, she sees the stuff that I do as a medicine man, as an energy worker, calling the labels out. And she thinks it's nuts. But she lets me be me, and she cares mostly like, that's all great that you're doing this, but how are you showing up as a husband, as a father, as a friend? And if those things are congruent, then cool. I'm going to let you be you. I'm going to let you go on these business trips. I'm going to let you do all these different things because you're actually integrated. And that's, to me, that's beautiful. It's like an embodied spirituality.
It's the most important thing. I've gotten to this point in life where I just value people, men who are responsible at the deepest level. Okay. Right? They take care of their business. They take care of their tribe, whatever that looks like. They show up. One of my favorite books, you probably resonate with it, is The 4 Agreements. Yeah. And the rule number 1 is be impeccable with your word. Right? I've just come to just love men. And you realize pretty quickly, a lot of people aren't impeccable with their word. Right. And so that's what you're talking about. Like, she trusts you because you're impeccable in these areas, and you've proven that I am who I say I am.
Right. And I've proven that I wasn't always that, but I am that now. And I'm that consistently over time, which then creates a safe, loving container to be this version. That's, if I look at that version before 2019, and that version of me wasn't impeccable with my word. I always had love, but what I lacked was respect. And I lacked respect for others in so many different ways. I was more of a judgmental kind of person. Like, what do you mean 80% on your fitness and nutrition? How, if this is important to you, why are you not 100%? And then if it got down to it, that self-love and self-respect wasn't there. So if you can't have it for yourself, how could I have had it for my relationships?
So true. Such important message for men listening to this, right? That it's not selfish to take care of yourself. No. It's actually, it's selfish not to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, it's amazing how many men are hyper critical of their partners, but I think they forgot that they have mirrors. And I did understand this really well in the fitness space, because I would have guys come in and, right, fitness, nutrition, whatever, they're coming for transformation. And so they would walk into my studio and I'd be like, what are you looking to do? And they're like, well, I want to drop 5 or 10 pounds. And I'd be like, in my head, I'm like, bro, you look down, you can't even see your genitals. You've got 50, 60, 80 to lose. like, you're a walking heart attack. What kind of husband is that to their wife who now, like, you sold them a false promise of who you were going to be. You stopped taking care of yourself, yet you hold her to this standard that she needs to spend all this time, energy, effort, resource on her health. I'm like, there's a lack of congruence there. And then the women in general would come in and they would be so hard on themselves, and they would view themselves through a lens that was completely unrealistic. Could be a Playboy playmate and be like, I'm a 5 out of 10 is the way they would view themselves. And they'd find all of their flaws and their own self-love. And so much of that, you start saying, well, where is that all coming from? And I think as a man, it's not about just the actions. It's about the intentionality behind the actions. If you can look at your own health, your fitness, your body, mind, spirit, etc., and say, I am doing this for we, and you get back to your why around it and your why not neglect yourself, I think that kind of clarity and intention is important.
Yeah, it's such, I mean, we're just touching on this, and we should do an entire podcast on it, but I sort of pointed one extreme of a guy who's so focused on his body to the exclusion of other. You're talking about no attention to it.
Right.
And it's like you get to at least midlife and onwards where there's this sweet space in there where you're tending to yourself. You're making it sort of like the the old adage, put your oxygen mask on and then put it on. But the point is put your oxygen mask on and put it on the person next to you.
That's right.
Right. It isn't just put your oxygen mask on so you look good and you whatever, feel good. So what? It's a means to what? So that you can live to serve and give and be here and be your best self, right?
Absolutely. And if we take this down into morning habits, for example, like if we want to look through the microscope, make this really granular. My morning habits and my schedule when I set it up was 6 to 8 is my time to go through meditation, shamanic rituals, taking care of the dogs, lifting weights, going in the sauna, etc. And then at 8 o'clock, I start with clients. Well, I sat back and I looked at things. I was like, you know what? My wife takes the kids to school. She picks them up. She's doing all the nighttime things, all this. I said, I'm going to start cooking the kids breakfast and I'm going to take them to school every morning. Is it loving, fun connection time? No, my kids don't want to wake up in the morning, right? We're forcing them to be on an adult's, schedule. But it then is thinking in terms of we, and it opens up space for my wife to sleep in, get some more of this stuff because I'm thinking through we. So I have to adjust to that and overcome. And I said, all right, negotiate in these senses. Like, yes, would it be great if I had the 40 minutes to meditate in the morning and fit all that in? Sure. But I had to pull from that to open up for that because I needed to move into the we. So it is just like you said, it's the spectrum. And then when it gets really embodied in your day to day, a lot of it is thinking like not just what is best for you, but what is best for the unit, the we, the team.
Yes. And like we're really redefining spirituality in this sense. And I would challenge your wife talking to your mother. She's talking to your mother. I mean, first of all, it's a mitzvah. It's a commandment.
Yeah.
But it's a commandment for a reason because like, what if that is just so nourishing to your mother who's, older, obviously, and probably less connected and less purposeful and feels less relevant. And so all of a sudden she's pulled into life and filled with life. How is that not spiritual? By the way,
that's right.
How is it not spiritual for you to be cooking or cleaning or driving or whatever? Because, I did 500 eulogies. That's the shit people talk about.
That's right.
They don't talk about, my dad had the 6-pack and sat in meditation for an hour a day and nobody could disturb him.
That's right.
Right? Like if you can do that and do these other things, great. I had no judgment to you, but like, let's redefine these terms.
As a journalist, you hit a nerve in a really good way. There are certain names and terms that do need redefinition. And in my day-to-day life, there's spirituality, there's God, and there's diabetes, right? I have a daughter who's type 1 diabetic. I'm like, to call type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes the same thing is ridiculous. One's an autoimmune disease. One is completely different, that your body can't really process all this excess sugar that you've been putting in it. One can come from neglect usually, and the other one comes from you're dealt shitty cards. And in spirituality, or if we look at God, for example, so much of our society thinks God equals religion, and others tell them what to think. And if they've had a bad experience there, they go, oh, that word is awful. So we have to tiptoe around and say words like the universe or this or that, whatever feels right for us. And usually that word will then both resonate with some and offend others. And I'm curious from you going through that, like, have you found a way to be at peace with all of those, or is there anything like that? Like, where are you at with that? Because that for me has been one of the hardest things in my journey.
So hard. Teacher of mine, Dennis Prager, said he had a radio talk show. Somebody calls in and says, I'm not going to get married because I grew up in a house with terrible parents that got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the opposite of bad marriage is not no marriage. It's good marriage. So get married and do it right. And rejecting something, you're part of the problem.
That's right.
Put your attention on. So the opposite of bad God is not no God, it's good God. The opposite of bad religion is not no religion, it's good religion. Do it well. Be a part of what you want to create in the world. But usually when I say to somebody, you're religious? No, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, me just means I feel spiritual. I'm like, that's like me telling my wife, hey, it's your birthday. And just know I feel so many good things about your birthday. Have a great day. What did I do? What do you do that's spiritual? How do you manifest that? And like what you're saying is, yeah, let's reclaim this word. And like I drive carpool, right? And I'm set my intention, and it's not just an exercise. And I actually think that I'm taking my kids out into the world and giving them an opportunity to be a part of something, and that can be so spiritual.
That's right.
But we've relegated these words to like,
isolation.
This is what it is. Yeah.
Right. Which is fascinating. Isolation from the real world equals spiritual to so many. And to me, I think as I feel into it, embodiment in the real world is extremely spiritual.
Extremely. Like, for instance, sex.
Yeah.
You can have sex, or you can like experience intimacy with the right person at the right time in the right way. You're a religious person. That's where God is met. According to Kabbalah, we could get a lot of converts. God is found in the orgasm, right? The orgasm is the hidden light, and that's, by definition, look, you can create a child out of that experience. Right. So like, am I spiritual? Yeah, I'm making love to my wife. I'm deeply spiritual, right? So like embodied spirituality, not just this sort of ethereal, right? Like you said, I'm detached from the world. No, I'm actually fully engaged in the world. That's spiritual.
Right.
Or could be, or should be.
Should be. So, absolutely. Well, you feel a lot less hollow when it isn't.
And it's a lot more fun to go to your synagogue or church when it's in your bedroom and, making love. So
that's a great place to pray.
All right, my man. Well, we have a lot more to talk about, but this is a definite good start. And I just feel so honored and privileged that you have come into this community, that you've been building community, that you come into my life, that you're doing this work. Total self-trust. I just think it's a great name for a book. But more importantly, the man who instills this. I feel that just being in your presence. Thank you.
Really appreciate it come from you, given your journey, and grateful for our friendship, for this opportunity, and hopefully for anyone listening at home, they were left with something to ponder.
And lastly, we'll put it in the show notes, but how can people get a hold of you?
So my website is rapidharmony.com.
It's not just a dating site.
Not eHarmony. There's no electric harmony.
I thought it was like, yes. Speed dating of eHarmony. No.
Yes, no. It's the play on the idea that everybody wants something now, and when we deal with the quantum field, everything is here and now. So yes, it can be rapid. It can be instantaneous. You don't need to delay things due to others' rules. And the book is Total Self-Trust. You can go to totalselftrust.com and it'll forward you right over to Amazon.
Love it. Well, big things ahead, and I really appreciate you. Thank you for all the work that you do and who you are.
Thank you.
All right.